Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let's start today's webinar on the fallacy of the neutrality of meaning of language and from a critical discourse analysis perspective. This is me, Hisham Muhammad Abu Mustafa, lecturer in English Linguistics, ex-head of the Department of English Language and Translation at Qasim University, Bachelor of Education, Bachelor of Arts, Master MA in English Linguistics, Political Discourse Analysis, PhD candidate in Cognitive Semantics and Critical Discourse Analysis, Banha University, honorary membership of the Egyptian Translators and Linguists Association, Ejudam Tesula's Master Trainer and Consultant. I'd like to welcome all of the live attendees and to welcome all those who, inshallah, will watch the video or watch the webinar hereafter. Actually, today's lecture is mainly extracted from my book, The Manichaean Demonization of the Other in Political Discourse, a linguistic rhetorical exploration. This book was published in 2011, and I'm going to discuss just the first, the introductory part in this book, okay, concerning critical discourse analysis, and I'm going to start from the very beginning. I'm going to start from the definition of discourse. Allow me to start step by step. First, discourse is defined by Stubbs as language above the clause. Language above the sentence or above the clause. Sometimes it's said to be discourse is suprasentential structures. In the sense that discourse is greater than the sentence, is greater than the clause, okay? Why do you think this is the definition of discourse? Actually, because in linguistics for a long time, especially in generative transformational grammar, the highest structure of language, or the greatest structure of language, was defined as the sentence or the clause. So they thought for a long time that if you want to analyze sentence, the greatest structure in sentence that can be analyzed is the greatest structure of language that can be analyzed is the sentence, okay? But here, of course, discourse analysis appeared as a reaction to the formalist approaches, which thought that the greatest structure was the sentence. The great structure in language was the sentence. And these approaches separated between language and its usage, between what's called competence and performance, okay? So here in discourse, we are against this. Okay, this is the background of discourse analysis. These approaches, what's called the formal approaches that focused on the form of the language and separated between the form and the context, its context, okay, its meaning. So discourse, if I'm analyzing discourse, I'm analyzing language above the sentence, okay, above the clause, greater than the sentence. According to this definition, all language in use, save curses, shopping lists, and road signs, is discourse. Discourse means a language, okay? Language in use, language in use. What's the meaning of language in use? It's common sense that all language should be in use. Do we have language for using it and language for keeping it? It's logical that we have language in use. But actually, this definition also of discourse as language in use, this language in use comes from the previous definitions of the function of language, or the main object of linguistics is to study how language is structured, okay? To study the rules that generate sentences, okay? So here we focus that discourse is language in use, real language, not just examples that are created by the linguists, okay? We are not just having some examples, okay, created for analyzing, but they are not real. Okay. So this is the definition of discourse. So if I say that I'm analyzing discourse, I mean that I'm analyzing language above the sentence or above the clause. I'm analyzing a paragraph. I'm analyzing a text, a whole text, a book, in its context, in the sense that it must be in the context, okay? In its context. What the meaning of context? Context is something greater than the text itself. The text is what is written, okay? The context is everything surrounding this. And who said this? When did he write this? Or when did he say this? How? Where? Why? Okay? To whom was it said? Okay? So I should study it in its broader context, okay? This is the meaning of discourse. One of the definitions of discourse is that it's a text plus situation, okay? So I should situate this text. It must be situated in its situation to analyze it. I cannot analyze it in a decontextualized text, okay? But we analyze it in its context, okay? In its context. If you want me to analyze a text, I should analyze it after knowing the information about the writer, who said this, to whom, why, how, where, when, okay? If it was spoken, I should know how he was speaking. If it was audio visual, it was a videotape, I should know how he was speaking when he said this, okay? His body language. So we are not only analyzing the verbal message, but the non-verbal message. So in discourse analysis, and you know also about the multimodal discourse analysis. Now we are talking about multimodal discourse analysis, because the channels of discourse are no longer spoken and written, okay? But I'm talking about body language, gestures, facial expressions. All these are part of the discourse, okay? I'm not talking about analyzing the grammatical structures. Okay, this is a very important part of discourse analysis, but it's not restricted to this. It's not restricted to the grammatical, syntactic, and semantic structures. Okay. A more technical definition might be to say that a discourse is a systematic, internally consistent body of representations. The language used in representing a given social practice from a particular point of view. This is Fairclough's definition, okay? What's the meaning of this? Language used in representing a given social practice. Language used in representing a given social practice. Suppose that I'm analyzing an essay. This essay is what? Is what? Is language or not? This essay is language, okay? Used in representing a given social practice, any social practice, okay? So if this essay represents, okay, school life, the role of woman in society, okay, this essay or this article in a newspaper is language, okay? Of course it's a language, and it represents a social practice, okay? The role of woman in society, the school life, okay? It's a social event. From a particular point of view, what the meaning of from a particular point of view? I must know who said this. What is his particular point of view while writing this? Because here, this is very important. Here, it's very important. In Fairclough's definition, he's talking about what we are going to talk about in the future, in the coming slides. That the representation of reality, the representation of society, of social practice is not like a mirror. It's not a mirror, okay? It's not a mirror. This discourse represents reality. Yes, it represents reality. It represents something that happens in society. Okay, we said that this is language in use. We are analyzing language in use. This is not something fabricated. This is language in use. But it's not like a mirror. Why? Because a mirror means that if I stand in front of a mirror, what can I say? I can see myself. Whether I am ugly, I'm smart, this is me. Okay, the mirror just reflects me. If discourse does the same function of a mirror, so this is neutral discourse, unbiased discourse. It just shows reality, reflects it as it is, okay? But no, actually discourse is not like this. Language is not like this, because language reflects, okay, from a specific point of view. So I sometimes describe language not as a mirror, but as, you know, editing programs, programs, montage, actually I cannot trust them, because if you use them, you are not reflecting reality, right? You have options, right? You can add some effects, right? You can cut some parts, clipping, and you can cut and add some parts, okay? So it's not reflection of reality, but it's restructuring of reality, restructuring of reality، إعادة هيكلة للحقيقة وليس انعكاس للحقيقة. This is discourse. So I should not think of discourse as unbiased representation of reality. You understand my point? Is it clear? Till now it's clear. Okay, the definitions. We are going step by step. I know that I have seen that some of you are more specialized than me, but I'm sorry, I want to start from the very beginning to follow the line of thought, okay? Discourse analysis. So this is the meaning of discourse, but what about discourse analysis? Brown and Ewell define discourse analysis as the analysis of language in use. Of course, we said that this is language in use. Discourse is language in use, okay? So the analysis of language in use, the analysis of language in use means the analysis of language as it is used, okay? So if I have a conversation, okay, I'm analyzing a conversation, I analyze it as it is, with all its poses, with all its gestures, okay? With all its body language features, okay? So I analyze it as it is. I'm not fabricating or creating or inventing a conversation which is not real to analyze, okay? Because this is also important at schools. At schools, many students in teaching conversation and in teaching dialogues, some teachers and some courses depend on unreal conversations, okay? So the students cram many of the cliches which are not used in real life conversations. But here we're talking about real life conversations, real life language as it is used, okay? As is used in any society. Ewell argues that discourse analysis is the investigation of how we, this is the discourse analysis. What is the mission of discourse analysis? What is the target of discourse analysis? Discourse analysis is the investigation of how we, who are we? Language users. As language users, who are the language users? Who are those language users? Who are those language users? Humans. Humans are language users. So discourse analysis is the investigation of how we, as language users make sense of, understand what we read in texts, and understand what speakers mean, So how we can understand what we read in texts and understand what speakers mean. Before discourse analysis and before these approaches to the study of language and use, the most important part of language was to study grammar and lexis, the vocabulary, the meaning of words and the meaning of the structures of the language. But actually here in discourse analysis, we are analyzing how we as language users can understand what we read. Actually, we don't depend on the meaning of words and the meaning of structures. We need something greater than this. We need more clues to help us understand it, like the cultural clues, okay? The culture itself. In order to understand that this is acceptable or unacceptable, what does he mean by this? This is something good or bad, okay? He means that this is acceptable or not. He might not say this, but or our understanding of the greater culture, the external culture, may help us to understand what he means by this. So the culture in which this was written, this was spoken, is very important. The cultural point, the context. When and where did he say this? So actually, we do not depend on in analyzing discourse in order to understand if this is the mission, to understand, yes, this is our mission in discourse analysis, is to investigate how we can understand, how we can make sense of what we read in text and understand what speakers mean, what's spoken or written. So we use many clues in order to investigate discourse analysis. So we should use phonology, phonetics, syntax, morphology, semantics, pragmatics, and discourse analysis, okay? Sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, cultural points, okay? Anthropology, all these are are used by a discourse analyst in order to understand this discourse, in order to analyze this discourse. So discourse analysis is not a subject just to be studied. It's a mission to be done. And to do this mission, to reach this objective, you should have in mind all these levels of linguistics, okay, and even of non-linguistics, okay, or not non-linguistics, but beyond the linguistics, okay, beyond the study of linguistics, like anthropology, okay. So here, while analyzing, I'm not analyzing something linguistically in the sense that I'm analyzing the grammar, what's called language or text analysis, okay? I'm not analyzing the text only, but I'm analyzing what is behind this text, behind saying this, okay? So this is the investigation of how we as language users can make sense of what we read in texts and understand what speakers mean. So actually, while speaking to someone, okay, you might understand his message, but I cannot understand him. Why? I can know English and you know English, okay? Suppose that I'm talking to my friends, my colleagues, to one of my colleagues. He asked me a question. Are you coming to college tomorrow? Tomorrow is Tuesday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's fine. What's the meaning of this? What's the meaning of this? This is a conversation between me and my colleague. What did you understand from this conversation? It seems that my colleague understood and got the answer. He was asking me, are you coming to college tomorrow? He didn't ask me about, is today Tuesday or not? Okay. He was asking me a yes-no question. Are you coming to college tomorrow? But my answer was not related to the question. I told him that tomorrow is Tuesday. How can I understand this? Does the word Tuesday in the dictionary, does it mean that a holiday? No, I don't know. Tuesday is not a holiday. Does it mean that I'm not coming? Does it mean I'm coming? No, I cannot say this. So how can my colleague understand that I'm not coming to college or I'm coming to college? Oh, here there is something beyond what I said, and this is pragmatics. This is pragmatics, okay? Here, there is some background, okay? Some knowledge background, okay? Something he knows about me. He knows about my schedule, okay? He knows about my schedule. So he knows that on Tuesday I don't have any lectures. So when I told him that tomorrow is Tuesday, this means that I don't have lectures on Tuesday, so I'm not coming. This means that I'm not coming. Okay, you understand my point? So he understands that tomorrow is Tuesday means that I am not coming, because he knows that on Tuesday I don't have lectures. I don't have any lectures, okay? But for any other bystanders, okay, or some hearers who don't know about me and about my colleague and this background knowledge, they wouldn't understand the message, okay? So of course, a lot of our messages cannot be decoded without background knowledge, So language is not restricted to some words. It's not restricted to some lexis and some grammatical structures. The clues may occur in or may reside in cultural background, knowledge background, okay? Discourse analysis. The most insightful approaches to discourse analysis, to complete the definitions of discourse analysis, the most insightful approaches to discourse are those inclusive ones that combine the analysis of language in use with the analysis of sociocultural structure. So actually, some approaches to discourse analysis focus on the language in use, the structure, the linguistic structures. Others focus on the sociocultural structure. But actually, those insightful approaches and comprehensive approaches should make this link between the language in use, the analysis of language from the linguistic aspects, and also the analysis of language in its sociocultural structure, in its sociocultural structure, in its society, the cultural points, okay? So I cannot understand discourse or analyze discourse without its greater context. And context here may include what is beyond the linguistic aspects, okay, or what's called the microstructure. The microstructure, the linguistic structure, okay, the language. The macrostructure means the culture, okay, the greater context of cultural points and society, okay. So this is also should be borne in mind in the analysis of discourse. After that, after knowing the meaning of discourse and discourse analysis, we can talk about critical discourse analysis. Actually, the socially focused approaches and the linguistically oriented ones in the study of discourse are brought closely together via the approaches of critical discourse analysis. Here, when we make this link between the linguistic approaches to the study of discourse and the socially focused approaches, those approaches which focus on the social background, the ideology, the background knowledge, the cultural points, okay? When we merge them together in one analysis, we are talking about critical discourse analysis, in which linguistic and textual realizations are seen as direct indications something missing. Yes, as direct indications of society or social factors, okay? So when I'm analyzing linguistic and textual realizations mean that they represent something, okay? They represent some ideological background, some social factors, some cultural points. So if you write something, you are not writing it out of the blue. You have some ideologies in your minds, which make you represent the world in this way, okay? The goal of the analysis, the critical discourse analysis, what is the goal of the analysis of critical discourse analysis? Is to provide a detailed description, explanation, and critique, okay? Critical analysis, critique of the textual strategies. What is the meaning of textual strategies? Different strategies, different linguistic strategies used in the text. How? For example, some grammatical strategies like passivization, nominalization, okay, cohesion, coherence, okay, textual structures, semantic structures, semantic strategies, metaphorical structures. The metaphors are part of semantics. So these metaphors are used not for fun, okay? They can create a lot of meanings, a lot of hidden meanings. So these textual strategies deployed, I have to describe and explain and critique these textual strategies, so I should master the linguistic aspects, okay? I should be familiar with these things. I should know these things in order to analyze them. Deployed by the writer speaker to naturalize discourse. What's the meaning of naturalize? To naturalize something means to make it seem to be natural, to be normal, to be accepted or taken for granted. That is to make discourse appear to be common sense, apolitical. Apolitical. Here, E means not political, okay? Apolitical means not political. Statements. What do you mean of common sense? Common sense means that it's a self-evident, something taken for granted, something that we know we don't need to argue about, okay? You understand my point? So for example, common sense like we were at dawn. Okay, we were at dawn. So no need to tell you that at dawn the sun didn't rise. Okay, this is something common sense. Okay, this is common sense. So you should take it common sense. But of course, not everything should be taken as common sense. Some statements are presented as common sense, naturalized. Okay, naturalized. So we're against things like it's taken for granted that no one can question that. Why no one can question that? Okay. So if I represent it as taken for granted, the goal of critical discourse analysis is to what? To describe, explain, and critique the textual strategies used for this. So if I say it's taken for granted that, so I represent it as what? As a fact, as undisputable fact. Okay. So if you tell me that, if you write or say that women are less intelligent than men, okay, who said this? Why? Where? You represented it as what? It's common, as a fact. It is said that, okay, it is said that. Here you use the present tense, okay? The present tense means that it's a fact. But why do you represent it as a fact? How can you know? So if I accept it as a fact, because you represent it as a fact, without analyzing this and showing that, okay, and showing that you used the present tense in order to explain something, to refer to something as a fact. The present tense means that it's not your opinion. But I think that women are less professional than men. I think means that this is your own opinion. This is something else. Here you wanted to show something. This is my opinion, okay? I don't need to provide proof for this. It is my opinion. Yes, I saw some women, okay, in my job who are less professional than men, but this does not mean that it's a fact. So if you say, I think, it's different from saying that women are less professional than men. I think, I mean, this is your opinion. It may be right, wrong. You don't, okay, it can be falsifiable. But if you say women are, this means that you represent it as a fact. Okay, so of course the linguistic aspects can be used and should be analyzed here. So we should not take it for granted. To naturalize discourse, to naturalize means to make it natural, as if it were common sense, something taken for granted. No one can argue about it. No one can say something else. Why? Why no one can say something else? Why? It's not a fact. Okay, so some statements which are taught for a long time may be falsifiable, may be false, but we repeat it till we take it for granted as common sense. Okay. To the extent that when you argue about this, you consider, why are you arguing about this? I cannot give you a reason for this. It's something taken for granted, something, okay? So this is something very important. In critical discourse analysis, we don't believe in this. We don't believe in taking things for granted, okay? In taking things as naturalized, okay? And in history, you would find that a lot of political things were passed in this way, okay? And for example, in the past, they said that the white man's burden, you know, this poem about the white man's burden, and that the white man has his task and his mission to do the intelligent tasks, which the other man or the people from which the black people cannot do, because their mentality is less than, is not capable of doing this. So it was taken for granted as common sense that a white man should do this job because a black man naturally cannot do this. This is something by nature, okay? His nature cannot do this. His intellect, he cannot do this. So it was naturalized. It was naturalized. Even by some scientific fabrications, by showing that the genetic structure of the white man is different from the genetic structure of the black man, and the black man genetically he cannot do this. So it becomes a fact. No, we need to discuss this. We need to critique this. Okay? Critical discourse analysis involves the multidisciplinary. What the meaning of multidisciplinary? Multi means many. Disciplines. Disciplines mean sciences, because actually we depend on different sciences in the analysis of discourse. As we said, multidisciplinary study. Yani, we have to use semantics, pragmatics, discourse analysis, ethnomethodology, anthropology, sociolinguistics, cultural studies, okay? The study of, but the multidisciplinary study of the intricate relationships between text, talk, social cognition, power, society, and culture. So it's intricate relationships between these things. This is, of course, Tume Van Dyke, okay, 1993. Actually, Tume Van Dyke is an inspiring scholar in this field, actually. And he inspired me a lot. Because he was the first one that I read his articles on critical discourse analysis. All knowledge, all objects are constructs. And they are constructs, okay? They are constructs. Synthetic constructs. They are like buildings, okay? Criticism analyzes, criticism analyzes the process of construction, the process of construction. So all knowledge, all objects, okay, are something like a construct, okay? A construct means that it's like a building, like a synthetic object, okay? Criticism, critical discourse analysis should analyze this, okay? Should analyze this, take it into parts, take it into parts. This is knowledge. This is something written in newspapers. I should take it into parts. I should not take it for granted, but I should analyze this. Analyze this, analyze the process of construction, and acknowledging the artificial quality of the concerned categories. What's the meaning of this? That it's not naturalized, it's not something natural, it's not something commonsensical. This is something written by a writer. This writer has some background, motivated by his background, his ideology, the framework of thoughts, okay? This ideology is like the mold. You know the molds? قوالب. I have the event and I put it in this ideological mold and it takes the shape of my mold, okay? It takes the shape of my mold. It's not something, some real representation, okay? Some natural representation of reality. As I said before, it's not a mirror, okay? It's artificial quality of concerned categories, offers the possibility. So it's something artificial. This offers the possibility that we might profitably conceive the world in some alternative way. That's said by Fowler. What's the meaning of this? Yes. If it were something artificial, that knowledge is something artificial, knowledge in the sense that the representation of this knowledge, the representation of the event is something artificial. It's made by someone, it's written by someone, it's spoken by someone who has his cultural background and his ideology. So this means that we can restructure this language, we can restructure this event, we can conceive the world in some alternative way. But those who are having power in discourse, okay, who present themselves as the sources of knowledge, actually want to show us that this is something unquestionable. It's the only reality, the only representation of reality, so it cannot be represented in some other way. So we have to conceive the world in this way, no other options, okay? But actually, the conception of knowledge in this way, that it has possible options and it can be stated in some other ways, this means that we can restructure it, we can understand it in other ways. It's not a must to understand it in the way that you understand it. Okay, so it may be the same event, but the representations of this event may be taken in different way, may be done in different ways. Okay, I might represent it. For example, a teacher beat a student at school. Okay, this is the event. Okay, I saw this and you saw this and the third person, many people saw this. Okay, that a teacher was beating a student, okay? Actually, I can take the side of the student and express this in this way. A harsh teacher was whipping a child. This is the representation of what? Of the event. You saw this and I saw this, okay? But how can I use language to show sympathy for the student? Huh? How can I use language in order to show the sympathy with the student? Lexically, I used the verb whip. I didn't use beat or hit or whip, which is used with animals. So this would represent the teacher as a sadistic human. Okay, he's not treating human beings to whip. Okay, so also I used an adjective, for example, to describe the teacher, a harsh teacher or a merciless teacher. Okay, I can also make it more by saying a merciless teacher was whipping a child, was whipping an innocent child, okay? Of course, merciless for the teacher would also show great anger against this teacher, would raise the anger of the listener against this teacher. I didn't see, but I'm just reading your words, okay? But the person who saw is writing now. Was whipping. The use of the progressive aspect or the continuous aspect, okay, shows that it's not just to whip someone, it was a continuous action. So the image that I had is that it's a matter of tormenting the student, not just punishment for something he did. Also, innocent, the use of the adjective innocent, which shows the helplessness of this student. He didn't say student, he said a child. Also the word child, he could have used student, a boy, but he used a child. Also to muster sympathy for the student, okay? Someone else saw the same event, the same action, okay? And he described it like this. A teacher, okay, punished a naughty student. A naughty student. A teacher punished a naughty student for insulting and abusing his colleagues. Oh, here you are talking about a naughty student, okay? A naughty student, okay? So I wouldn't be sympathetic or equally sympathetic with a naughty student, but I would be more sympathetic with an innocent child, right? Also a teacher. It was described as a teacher. Without merciless or something like this, nothing is told about it. The word punish means that this is a kind of disciplinary action which may be acceptable at school. Discipline is acceptable at school because punishment means that you did something wrong and you are punished for doing this wrong. So it's acceptable at this context to be punished at school. Yes, we accept punishment at school. Maybe we don't accept physical punishment at school, but he didn't say that it was physical. He didn't say that he was beaten. Okay? He didn't say whipped. He said punished. How was he punished? We don't know. He was punished. Punished maybe verbal punishment. Okay? Maybe he was deprived from the break or from having some exercises with his colleagues, or yes, maybe something like this. But punishment is acceptable at school. Okay, so of course, it's a reconceptualization, reframing of the event, not just a reflection of the event. Okay. The fallacy of the neutrality of language. As I said, that if language was neutral, was a natural representation of reality, so we are not talking about the need of critical discourse analysis because it's naturally done. But actually, one of the features of human beings, of the language, human language, is the fact that human language can be prevaricated. Yani, prevarication is one of the features of human language. Actually, one of the features of human language is creativity. One of the unique features of human language is its creativity, as you know. But the other side of this creativity is the prevarication, in the sense that we can fabricate lies, we can invent things, talk about things that are not real. We can disfigure reality. So this is, for example, one of the features, unique features of human language, or the peculiarities of human language, among the peculiarities of human language. But for example, for animal language, this is not found. Yani, a monkey cannot cry for a serpent, for a snake, or an eagle, and there is no eagle. They have cries, okay? For monkeys, they have cries. These cries show or indicate danger. They cannot say that, no, we are tricking you. No, we are just crying for a snake, but we didn't saw a snake. We're just tricking you. No, they cannot talk about unreal things. They have cries, but these cries are motivated when they saw danger. But for humans, no, you can talk about things that are not real at all, and you can create a lot of stories about this. So we cannot trust the language as something natural representation of reality. According to Robert Fisk, our words are never neutral. Our words are never neutral. Our words are never neutral. Fisk argues that people should never speak, read others' words, should never speak or read other words without being conscious of the underlying meaning of the words, why he spoke like this, why he said it in this way, why he wrote it in this way. As we said before, we have options for expressing things, okay, for representing reality. So we have options, we have different options. Riggins points out that the theoretical foundations of critical discourse analysis stem from the notion that the relation between words and truth is highly unsubstantiated and problematic. Between words, words and truth. Words are not a direct reflection, a natural reflection of truth. It's highly unsubstantiated and problematic because you can twist the text in order to represent something that is not real, okay? That is not real. As I said about the idea of the mirror, it's not a mirror, natural representation of reality. Ambiguous representation. Any form of writing is considered to be a selection, an interpretation, and a dramatization of events. As I gave you the example of the teacher, okay? This is what selection. I select one of the scenarios and presented it to the reader. So the reader should read or search for different scenarios, not just for one. But if I have the power, okay, the power to be the only source of information, so here you would accept mine as natural reflection of reality because you don't have any sources. I'm the only source of information. Okay, so this is the fact. This is the fact. Okay, but here it's considered a selection. Selection means that I have other options. Interpretation. This is my interpretation of the events. Okay, this is my interpretation. And a dramatization of events. Dramatization means that I describe it as if it were non-realistic. In dramatization, as you know, they do not reflect reality. Okay, there is a difference between reality and realism. Realism is something in, if I have the story of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, the story of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi dramatized. So in this drama, in this novel, in this literary work, I should not mention everything about his life. It's not a historical book, it's not a history book, okay? But I can add things for the sake of dramatization, okay? So this is called realism, not reality, because I'm writing a fictional work. So I have some dramatic events, some dramatic effects, okay? So also in our real life, any form of writing should be thought of in this way. We should not, yes, it should not be full dramatization, but he can use many effects. He can manipulate it. He can use his own interpretation of, okay? You understand my point? So sometimes this is sometimes done in translations of events. And in some translations, they use the pragmatic translation, in the sense that they wrote or they said what is meant by the writer. And this is something different from what he already said. But I convey the meaning of what he said, the intended meaning of what he said, the intended meaning of what he said. Okay, I try to give you my own interpretation of what he said. Maybe what he said is different. Okay, because what he said may be ambiguous, it may have different meanings. I just gave you the meaning I understand from this. Not all the meanings, not all the meanings, okay? You understand my point? According to Reagans, all representations of events are polysemic. Polysemic means they have more than one meaning. They have more than one meaning. That is ambiguous. Ambiguous means they have more than one meaning. And unstable in meaning. They do not have a fixed meaning. As well as a mix of truth and fiction. A mix of truth and fiction. In fiction, as I told you, we do not represent reality as it is. But you can add some dramatic effects. Okay? Yes, I told you the story. Yes, it's based on the story of Shakespeare. It's based on the story of Salah ad-Din. Okay, but I may add some situations, some events which were not in reality, which didn't happen in reality. Okay. It can be argued that discourse analysis, it challenges us to move from seeing language as abstract to seeing our words as having meaning in a particular historical, social, and political condition. This is very important. So here, do not tell me that this is a fact. All the time it's a fact. Yes, it might be a fact at specific time, okay, for a specific place, for specific historical circumstances, okay? But this does not mean that it's unquestionable fact all the time. It's something abstract. Abstract means that it's without context. It's without context. It's taken for granted all the time. Okay? I should study what? I should study and analyze the context. When it was said, how it was said, where, when, the historical point, the social point, the political condition at that time, okay? Even more significant, our words, written or oral, are used to convey a broad sense of meanings, and the meaning we convey with those words is identified by our immediate social, political, and historical conditions. Those words is identified by our immediate social, political, and historical conditions. So the meaning given to words is not the meaning in words. It's not something built in these words. No, the meaning we give to words, okay, depends on the immediate social, political, and historical conditions. So I cannot study it out of these conditions. And I cannot analyze it out of these conditions. Should tell me when, where, how it was said, okay? What do you think of this question? What do you think of this question? Can His Majesty allow me to go out? does it convey a kind of respect or not? A great degree of respect or not? Please try to answer this. Can His Majesty allow me to go out? What do you think? Do you think that this is a sign of great respect? Yes, that's great. Actually, I cannot analyze this without context. I cannot analyze this without context of situation. Okay, the meaning of words may convey or may tell me something that it's said by a servant or a follower to a king. Okay, and this is a kind of asking for permission. So if it were said in this situation, so it's okay. It may be a kind of respect and asking for permission. But suppose that it was said by a wife to her husband. A wife to her husband. Okay, who didn't allow her to go out without permission. Okay, so she was mocking him and she was asking him in this way. Okay, it's a kind of sarcasm, as you said. So of course this is not a kind of respect. I cannot understand this meaning without the situated context. Okay, the context of situation. I cannot understand or analyze it without the context of situation. Although it's a very simple question, but I cannot understand the meaning of this simple question without understanding the context of situation. Okay, so it must be identified by different conditions, So who's speaking to whom, where, when, how, why. Okay, the self-evident. Michel Foucault argues for the necessity to question over and over again what is postulated as self-evident. As I told you before, the self-evident means that it cannot be proved. Okay, no need to prove it. It's self-evident. Okay, it's self-evident. Something self-evident means that 2 and 2 equals 4. Okay, it's something self-evident. Okay, to disturb people's mental habits. Mental habits means things that we are accustomed to accept or take for granted. Okay, it has become a habit. It has become a mental habit. And the thing, in the sense that I don't think about it. So to question over and over again what is postulated as self-evident, something taken for granted, to disturb people's mental habits, okay? To dissipate what is familiar and accepted. Dissipate means that to analyze it, okay? And instead of being something taken as a construct, no, to dissipate it, to take it into parts. It's something familiar and accepted, okay? To re-examine the rules and institutions. To re-examine the rules and institutions. What is taken as rule? This is a rule. We should obey it. We have to obey it. This is a rule. But why don't we examine it? Why don't we think about its validity? Why do we obey this? Why? Okay, this is a fact. Okay, some of the things that people still do till now, although they are superstitions, some superstitions, people still do because of what? Because of self-evident, that they are self-evident, that they are taken for granted. Okay, that they are taken for granted. They don't question it. They don't question it. Okay, but they are mythical. They have no reality. okay? But we are accustomed to do this, okay? So it's postulated as self-evident to disturb people's mental habits, to distribute what is familiar and accepted. Because what's presented as accepted, what's presented as something that we have become familiar with, okay? So we don't question it. We don't think of it, okay? Because we are familiar with this. Something that we are born and we found this. We found it like this, okay? The presence and absence in text. For Fairclough, he talks about he differentiated between or among 4 degrees of presence and absence in text. Foregrounded information refers to those ideas that are present and emphasized. Foregrounded information refers to those ideas that are present and emphasized. Foregrounding means that it's not only presented, but it's also emphasized. You can use different types of linguistic emphasis if they were written, for example, and some intonation if they were spoken. So, for example, if you are writing something, you can use structures like passivization if you want to foreground using the by. Okay, this was done by Mr. John. So here you want to foreground the doer of the action. You can use something like it is Mr. John who did this. So you don't only present, but you want to present it and to emphasize it. So this is called foreground information. Number 2, you can also provide us with information in the text, but this information is backgrounded. This is backgrounded information refers to thoughts that are explicitly stated, but de-emphasized. Yes, I mentioned this in my topic, but I did not focus on it or repeat it many times or refer to it many times. I just mentioned it, but marginalized or backgrounded, okay? So sometimes, yes, I mention it because if you ask me, but no, your speech was not balanced. You didn't talk about the other people, okay, the problems of the people. You were just referring to some aspects of the topic without talking about the other aspects. No, I talked about it. But here you can have a choice of foregrounding or backgrounding something, okay? You can speak explicitly or implicitly. Explicitly or implicitly. Explicitly means to state it clearly and to foreground it, or to state it explicitly also, but to de-emphasize it. Mean that you don't mention it, you mention it once, okay? You refer to it once. You refer to it, but without having focus on the doer itself, okay? Marginalization. Number 3, we have presupposed information. Yes, presupposed mean that it's present at the level of implied or suggested meaning. So it's implicit representation in the sense that I do not say it clearly, but I have presupposition. I have presupposition. For example, when I say you should stop smoking, I didn't say that you are a smoker, but I presupposed that you were smoking. You are smoking because I said you should stop smoking. So stop means that you are doing this action. But I didn't say this. I didn't say that you are smoking, but I presupposed this. I presupposed this information, okay? So this is implicit information. Finally, one needs to consider absent information, ideas, and perspective that are relevant to a topic, but neither stated nor presupposed in a text. As I gave you the example of the teacher, yes, I can show something that is what, when I was talking about the example of the teacher, I might not refer to the reason for beating the student or for punishing the student. So this is what absent information. I don't want to mention this in order to show that this teacher is cruel and harsh. I didn't say that this student was abusing and insulting his colleagues. So I removed this. So it's very important not only to analyze what is mentioned in the text, but what is not mentioned in the text. The spoken and the unspoken, the said and the unsaid. Okay. Thank you very much for your attentive listening. This is the all we have in this lecture. Thank you very much from me, Hisham Abu Mustafa.